to this. Okay. Welcome, everybody, to Upstream Intelligence. We have here a guest, Sally DiCesare. I hope I said that correctly, Sally. My name is Victoria DaCosta. Shirley is not joining us today. Fortunately for her, she's attending a dental conference and learning lots of good things to bring back to our podcast in the following week. We are here today to discuss a little bit about Sally's future career options that she has chosen, and a little bit about her background as a dental hygienist for, I think, how many years did you say, Sally?
47.
47 years. You outdid me. You outranked me by 20 something years. And I'm so excited to have her today. And we are going to talk about dental hygiene profession. And I know the young students are probably going to listen to our podcast and they're curious what this all means because we started way back when. I remember way back when, but I want to read a little bit of short bio about Sally. Is a seasoned holistic dental hygienist with over 40 years of experience in the field. Just 5 years into her hygiene career, she found herself battling chronic stress, pain, and burnout, challenges many professionals silently carry. If you've ever felt like you're doing all the right things, yet you still feel exhausted or off balance, you're not alone. When the pain became overwhelming and the stress leaked out and began to destroy her family, she knew she had to do something differently. What began as a personal journey to survive became a complete professional transformation. Today, Sally is a transformational guide and founder of Your Blissful Journey, where she helps women, especially young professionals living with chronic pain, reconnect with their energy and release what weighs them down and restore peace and vitality. Her work blends intuition, body-based practices, and energy alignment to offer grounded, compassionate support for everyday life. Today, Sally is here to offer you hope and a reminder that healing is possible and you don't have to walk this path alone. If you're holding it, if you're holding it all together on the outside, struggling on the inside, she offers not just tools, but a deeply personal understanding of what it takes to feel whole again. And Sally, I can't tell you, your timing couldn't be more perfect. I believe now we need what you have to offer more now than ever. When I hear of our dental hygiene profession fading away or just burnout after what, 2 years of
Yeah.
practicing in our field, and you've gone 47. I put 25 years into my profession as a clinical dental hygienist. Why is this happening? What's going on to cause this? And why and how did you figure it out so that you could help us so that we could have a collaborative profession after all those years of study in school
Yeah.
to get out and say there's no profession? What? What's up with that?
It's an insane time. And you and I, Victoria, have been through the ups and downs of hygiene and but this is I don't ever remember our profession being bombarded the way it is from
Mhm.
the inside and the outside, it seems like. And why I think that we as a profession, as each professional, I'm seeing more and more Facebook groups. It breaks my heart
Okay.
every time it's somebody saying, I can't stand it. I'm killing myself. My body won't do it. I'm frustrated. And what I it's come become clear to me that it goes down to the very core of why hygienists practice. We are preventative specialists. We are under the umbrella and the, dare I say, thumb of a profession that restores. So we are stopping. uh, Our goal is to prevent needing to see the restorative part of dentistry. And so when our ethics and our values are butting heads like they are, when we're not valued for the information and the knowledge that we have and just put in a very narrow chute of cleaning teeth and just, you know, becoming that just over and over. You've got, you know, how many cleanings can you do in a day, right? Production, production, production. We can produce and prevent at the same time. We can be seen for the value that we bring to the practice. And some dentists are out there. And I'm not saying everyone, but the governing body feels threatened by how intelligent and fabulous we are and the great jobs that we as hygienists do. And there can be a symbiotic relationship.
And I want to touch on that symbiotic relationship because why was dental hygiene profession created in the first place?
Well, if I'm remembering correctly, it was to make the dentists have more time for their restorative work.
Uh-huh. And to investigate restorative work. I believe the part that's been left out, and that's the part I really have honed in on, is the lack of time a dentist has to investigate. We have more time to investigate in an environment that's prevention oriented. The patient's coming in for a cleaning, yes, but investigation. And I believe the insurance companies have uh, over over I guess overbilled or not overbilled, but overemphasized the cleaning and not the investigation. Because as I studied the cross coding that's happening now in dentistry, we are part of that cross coding. We are part of that investigation. We are in a portal of the body that nobody else spends how many hours? I can count at least. I imagine it's more, but 50 to 60,000 hours in one location in the body. I can't name a nurse or a medical doctor or a chiropractor or a dentist or an acupuncturist or an ND that has spent that many thousands of hours inside a mouth, at that many in one portal. And it's a large area. We have eyes that come into the body, we have ears, we have a nose, we have our reproductive, we have our waste management. But the part, and that's all looked at, but briefly. We're in an environment for what, 45 minutes minimum. And we're looking in an inside a medical, a whole person life. We're looking at their life and how they even behave, and what their diet is and what their stress load is. We have way more exposure to those inside what I call glass house medical information. So, Sally, why aren't we using it? What's going on here? We're seen as just clean the here's your broom and dustpan.
Yeah, right, right. Yeah. So why aren't we using it is a very valid and a really deep question, which we probably won't be able to answer right in
Okay, I
this,
get it.
but I feel we're not using it because we actually followed, it came along so slowly, this change until it exploded, right?
Uh-huh.
We were learning new tools, new skills, new information. We're getting the newer science, I think, because our we have the flexibility in our practice to be able to move a little bit more quickly than, say, you know, a radiologist would be able to because of the type of equipment that's involved in it. We can be more flexible and respond most quickly to the issue at hand. And so we were evolving and changing and growing, and the structure of dentistry, the structure of the business of dentistry didn't follow suit. And perhaps The failing was on the hygiene schools and the dental schools getting together and saying, "Hey guys, this is really exciting. Look where we're going." And they would either say yes or no. I mean, they don't study what we study.
Yeah.
It's just different.
We had
So,
I did a research. I learned, and I was shocked. We have 2,500 hours of training in a portal of entry for investigation and treating, but we also, most of it is spent on assessment, taking, and investigation. The dental schools have 500 hours. So we come out of school 2,000 hours ahead of investigation than the dental schools. And that, I think, is where we're butting heads. And maybe talk a little bit about your 47 years and your burnout. What happened to
right,
what caused your illness, or where you saw the frustration begin? Because I know what you're going to talk about is going to really help the younger students, and give them some coping skills. I wasn't given any. I had to kind of wing it. So did you.
right, right. We had to learn by trial and error and by seeking and discovering. And if I can make it easier for somebody, I'm all on board for that. But you nailed it, because this conversation has led to why I was feeling that pain, that burnout, that frustration that I was having. And it came about first in my body pain. That's what I noticed first. And most of us do. We know that we're stressed, but everybody's stressed, right? Um, and then but then when it starts to hit the body and you can't move, or your weekend is spent in bed, or for me, I spent massage. I mean, I got chiropractic, I got massages, I got acupuncture, but then it became the cost benefit results ratio kind of got skewed, because I was spending so much time and so much money on supporting a body to work that was taking me away from my family. So I was losing time fixing myself from a profession that was to stay in a profession that was draining me and bogging me down.
And let me just
And
point
that's
out
when I,
yeah, quickly, we had to have continuing education unit credits to keep our license active. Did we learn at any of those continuing education units what you're talking about, how to cope, how to heal our body? I want you to talk a little bit about that, because you had to find it on your own. We
I
learned
did.
about a new instrument or a new gadget, but what about our own health?
Absolutely. And I have been, thank you for that, because I have been reaching out and contacting study groups and everything, but because we have become myopic on the clinical practice of and not of it, not taking care of the vessel that performs the
Thank you.
clinical practice, right?
Right.
And and what I found was that there were three avenues with which pain made it into our bodies. And one of them is the physical, like I said, and that's what we notice. That's what I notice when my grip gets numb, my hand gets numb because I'm working so much, or the tension in my neck. That's what happens. So then the other one, I'm sorry, that's what happens from just the physical aspects. And then we have the mental strain and stress. And then we have the emotional on top of that. And until we address all three of those, then it's not going to go away. That's when you keep going back and back and back and not moving forward in healing. And so I've discovered there's an easy way to decide which one is most problematic for your listeners. I think it might be fun for them to just experiment a little bit.
Talk about it. Yeah, let's
Okay.
go for it.
So we're going to imagine, um, and I am speaking to hygienists, but there are other practitioners who can follow through and just put your own words in wherever it fits. Like I'm going to say I walk into an operatory. If you're walking into a patient's house, well, then that's a different thing. But imagine that it's Monday morning You had a nice drive into work. You're walking into your operatory. How do you feel? So we're just kind of using our imagination. Einstein says imagination is more important than knowledge. So let's let that imagination of yours, that pretending, that daydreaming, that imagining, here you are Monday morning and you're standing in your operatory. And just feel how that feels. Remember how it feels. That is your baseline. So you have your first patient and you've got them seated, they're comfortable, you're in your chair, you grab your instrument, you start working. Notice how your body changes. You can keep your eyes closed with this if it helps. Notice how your body changes from the walking in as your baseline to the physical.
Mhm.
So does your grip, do you feel some tension going up your arm? How about your neck, your lower back? Just check in with those normal tender areas. So that's going to be your physical. Then your patient says to you, oh my God, I forgot to tell you about this tooth on my upper left-hand side. Well, you had timed it so you'd have, you were on track, but they threw something in the rent. They wrenched up your works, right? So you have to take an x-ray, you have to investigate like we were talking about, you have to check it out. You look at the time, it's going to be tight. So you just start taking that x-ray and all. Notice what happens to your body in that situation, right? So that's the mental aspect of it. It's what happens. We have a time frame, we have a system, and when things come in, our mind tries to figure it out, and then it can bring tension in.
Well, I want to point out that tension also comes from the front office.
Well, and yes, I mean, that's actually our next one. Perfect segue, because the next one is here you are and you're working away. You got that one done. You said, I'll go to the bathroom next time or whatever. And you have your patient, and then you hear somebody talking in the background. Or it might be the front saying, hey, I put somebody in that little opening you had this afternoon, right? What happens, right? We even get more tense because now we've got that weight on us and it hasn't even happened yet. But we're already getting stressed out. And that is our emotional. Feel how that emotion gets working through your body and the muscles get more tight. And so, like I said, unless you hit all of those, because they're interwoven, you cannot feel better.
And
And
if you think about it, Sally, where's our control?
well,
We
the
don't,
only control we have is us.
right, but our environment is not a business environment that gives us any control. We're walking into a business environment with zero control. The only control we have is what we say to the patient. And even then, we're told to shut up, right? If we say too much.
Sometimes.
So yeah, I was told more than sometimes. I was fired. And I
Mm.
never had that feeling of independence where I could be in control of my schedule, be in control of the environment, because what you're talking about, and I don't mean to interrupt you, but I just wanted to point this out. It has to change. This whole business weight of putting control on a college graduate in an environment where we're taught how to be independent thinkers and we can't use it. Now we're
Right.
being paid a month or an hourly rate out of the production of what we're producing with no control. And we can't put more services in. We can't design our own daily week or schedule because we're partnering and collaborating with the restoration department. See, I see it as departments. We have a department where we have absolutely zero control. And the front office has that control because they're getting pressure from the restoration department to put so much income into the pocket of the business. And that to me creates an enormous amount of stress and burnout and lack of directional future for a professional. You're trained and licensed by the state, by the national boards, and you go into an environment. I mean, thank you, Colorado, for being independent. But what have we learned from independency and Colorado dental hygiene? They've kind of kept in their own little world. We haven't had any kind of mentoring from them. I wish we did, because I think they would have taught us how to look at it with a different set of eyes. That the stress you're talking about is every day we're dumped on. Every day we're thrown a left ball curve. Every day we're in that environment with absolutely no control. We can't control the patients that come in and say, I have a problem. We're there to help them solve the problem. We're there to help them get into the next care of phase or phase of care through the restoration department if needed. I haven't seen the credibility given to us. You want to talk a little bit about that? Where's our credibility?
So again, our credibility. I mean, this is another one that is going on right now in courts. I mean, this is the forefront. And yes, we do need to talk about autonomy in a smart, sensible way that everybody can hear. However, I am going to gently disagree with the fact that we don't have as any control. We truly do have a lot more control than we feel we do. I'd
Okay,
like to give you an example.
please go for it. Yeah.
So, years ago, I put to test something that I had learned,
Okay.
and it was that I have more control than I can control my response. And I had learned about quantum mechanics and how when I change something here, something all the way across the globe, that same molecule will change independently as long as they've been connected,
Mhm.
right?
Okay.
And so we have that in our practice, we have connection with each and every person. We have a connection with a patient that we've seen before,
Mhm.
or even if it's a new patient who's coming in and that patient, trusts the office as a umbrella or as an entity. So this patient that I'm going to share with you, and I know I'm the only one who's been in this situation, Miss G. So Miss G is the patient who would, not let the front staple her papers together. She would get upset if I gave her two tissues instead of one. Of course, I couldn't lay her back because she had vertigo. And I couldn't use the Cavitron because it gave her migraines. And I mean, the list, I mean, we have all had them, right?
Right. We have.
So she's the kind of person that'll mess up your week just knowing she's on the schedule. So I had learned how to change my perception through this quantum mechanics. And so she was coming in to see me, and it hit me that I needed to do something differently. I couldn't expect the same thing from her. And this would be, we can't expect the same thing to happen because it will happen if that's what we're expecting.
Uh-huh.
So, what's the best tool that we have to open our minds? It's curiosity.
Uh-huh.
So I became curious. I became curious, how could this appointment with Miss G be easy? Okay. Really, what happens to your brain after you ask a question like
Right.
that.
Uh-huh.
Right? She'll
Yes.
never be. Oh, she's such a witch. She'll never be.
Yes.
So you have to respond to that,
Uh-huh.
right? So you have to ask, You have to acknowledge those little gremlins in your head that
Right.
are going, you know, it'll never happen. You go, yes, you're right.
Uh-huh.
It
Right.
might not ever happen. So I had to listen to them and I had to listen to any insights I got. So you're right, it may never happen. But I'm open and curious if it might today. Wouldn't that be so cool? So this is what I'm doing is I'm walking up to the front. You figure it's a mile away, you know? And so I got out there and she's sitting on the edge of her seat. She hadn't changed yet. I'm going, gosh. And I'm doing this mantra. How can it be easy? How can it be the easy? And the voices are going like this. And I'm going, yeah, well, maybe it won't work, but let's be curious. Maybe it will. Wouldn't that be great if?
Uh-huh.
And so I'm bringing her back and I start working on her and I'm staying with this. How can it be easy? How can this be easy today? I'm really curious. How can it be easy? She puts up her hand. And I'm like, okay, how can this be easy? And she looks at me and she said, your arm must get really tired. Total flip from that person who's yelling at me if I give her the suction or anything. She changed because I was curious what was possible. And then I even said back to her, she was a professional violinist, so she was highly strung. And I said, but your arm must get tired with the violin. She said, but your arm is static. She was thinking of my retracting, my mirror hand. And I was like, wow. By the time she passed on, um, I can't say we were buddies, but we were actually a little dry humor was going back and forth. And that even worked. Another assistant saw what had happened in my room and she said, what'd you do? So I kind of told her and she tried it on one of a patient that only came in for emergencies. Oh, I've got a broken tooth. Oh, yeah. And she said, well, you know, how can this be different? I know it's never happened before. Listening to what shows up as options, as ideas of how we could make it different. They're only human. These people, they want to be safe. That patient got all that quadrant dentistry done today, that day. She needed a crown, yes, but she also had fillings to prevent the crown you know? So it was a really cool experience. We can change. So my suggestion is when we're at work and we are butting heads with a dentist or a front office who is not seeing things the way we do as a professional,
Hmm.
we want to remember that we are all in this together. We are a business. And yes, we each have to be productive in our own station, right? In our own place. And so they're human, I'm human, you're human. How can we get to that goal? And be curious. How can this be easy for me to get to my goal of communicating with them, my needs?
It sounds to me, and I put this in my investigation, is meet them at their values instead of put them in our vortex. Come into their vortex and listen and meet them at their vortex and meet them at their values and where they're at because their receptivity is their receptivity. And what I learned was listen to as they walk in the room in the operatory, it's their journey, not mine. I'm just here to assist and help on their journey. I'm being hired. I'm not imposing my will upon them. And I think the pushback is when we push our will, when we put our will upon them, that they have to conform into our, what you call your vortex, your quantum, your space. They're uncomfortable.
Yeah.
They don't have any control. When I realized that and I gave them all the control, all of a sudden all the guards were down. They were
Right.
way receptive to listening, and still I gave them all the control. I gave them so much empowerment that they would trust me over the dentist. I would
Well,
hear
yeah.
that all the time, that they would say, "Well, do you think? I mean, it was recommended. What do you think?" And I was actually quite surprised a bit that they were asking for my advice over the dentist and the front office. And that
Well,
trust,
you spend more time with them too, and
yes,
you gave them their power
yep,
to speak up and share with you what their concerns were, what their motivation is, and why can't we use that same empowerment for the front office, for the assistants, and for the dentist, knowing that the boxes that we have built for ourselves do contain us and keep us in our lane, but we all have to drive on the same highway.
right.
And we all want to have it a smooth ride from the beginning of the day to the end. And so you nailed it. Empower people instead of feeling like it's us against them, or it's my way or the highway kind of like thing. Yes, we are educated. Find out what the missing part is, what the glitch is between the communication.
So,
And that,
and how did you do that? 47 years. You must have started early on in your profession to be able to last 47 years as a dental hygienist, clinical environment.
yes, well, you know what? Every single office that I worked in
Mhm.
supported me in my personal and professional growth. I fortunately hadn't, I didn't have any offices that I read about. Even though I had a lot of stress and strain at the beginning, it was my doing. And I have to say, picking up on the energy of the patients. They are very, very stressed. And not all of them, excuse me, but many come in phobic. They come in with trauma. And we are working in a very intimate space, and they let us, you know? I mean, how many times have you worked on somebody and they've just started to cry? And you have it, and no, you didn't hurt me. But that is an emotional release. And so we are really close and personal. And I think that our profession, not to say we don't have enough education, but like you said, this part, this energy field part of humanity is not touched on in the medical establishment, in the dental establishment, that we are connected just like quantum mechanics because we work closely with each other. It's like when you walk into a room where there's been a fight and you can feel the tension. You could cut it with a knife, right? I mean, there's even descriptions for it, like I was beside myself, right? Not with myself, right? So all of these terms we know, but we haven't really thought about what they mean. So it's that energy. I'm sorry, I'm kind of getting all over the place. And this is why I had to come up with a method of how I work with people, because I get there's so many thoughts that go on in my head and yours. And then when we get talking, it can go, woo!
Well, let me ask you this. How do you've been in a clinical environment, now you're transitioning into a non-clinical environment with your expertise. How? How are you doing this?
So I mean, I just did it. That's really the only way. I had the fortunate thing about hygiene is you don't have to work full
Full
time.
time. Hmm.
And so I worked 2 days a week for probably the last 10 years of my profession,
Uh-huh.
and worked the rest of the time in helping clients who would come to me who were overwhelmed, stressed out, just
Now,
had.
did you get some certifications for this? Did you add on, or how did this come about? This
So I did
career
my
expansion. Yeah.
right. I went through Uplitter Institute to get craniosacral therapy, which was my beginning of healing. I started going to mind-opening lectures that people would invite me to. Tried a lot of the of different therapies, but the ones that worked for me is what I studied. And craniosacral therapy opened the door to rebalancing my central nervous system, which has, and it helps everybody. I shouldn't say just me, and not everybody. And so that's what I started with. And let me give a little aside here. There are so many different alternative therapies because so many different people need so many different things. So if you have the desire to get better or to heal or to improve yourself, the answer's out there. You just have to keep looking. And the answers will come to you if you hold that intention that that's what you want to do. So I'm hopefully here and I'm happy to answer any questions anybody has. Um, but so I started on the physical because that what was screaming the most. Like I said, I had done the massage, I had done the chiropractic. I didn't like going every week. And so I learned how to do it for myself. And I actually teach people how to do certain things for themselves because I think that's the empowerment factor that we were talking about. If we can take care of ourselves in varying degrees. Well, learning about my body actually got me to be able to hear what my body was saying. And it was when I heard what my pain was telling me. And it didn't always match what I expected. But it could be old stories that were coming up. It could be the experience that had happened that day. But it often, the chronic pain was never about the situation that I was in, but it was always about something that had been layered and layered and layered emotionally on top of the other. And I was holding it in my body. It's like when somebody yells at you and it just feels like it hits you in the gut or the stabbing in the back, right? Another, sayings that we're hearing, those are actually energetic things that happen to us. A sharp tongue. So those, when you feel that, it can get stuck. We learn to compartmentalize where that energy goes, and we need to learn how to dismantle it and let it start to flow again so we can flow through life with ease.
It sounds like when you first started with Mrs. G, that was the beginning of understanding how to respond in a negative environment. Because negativity is very it's very constricting in our body, and we hold those emotions tightly. And as a dental hygienist in a clinical environment, I'm hearing that you found solutions in a non-clinical dental hygiene environment using your dental hygiene knowledge and experience. How did that how did that help you help others because of your clinical experience? How did that help give you the knowledge and the
It, it,
understanding?
it gave me that curiosity.
Okay.
And I also, you said something and it wants me to come back to how we empower others. I love how you were saying that's what you gave your patients. And we have to also empower ourselves.
Right. Yeah.
And that, we take care of others, take care of others, take care of others. We forget, I mean, I had to relearn, as you probably did too, and many of our listeners here, how to relearn how to take care of yourself. What do you really like to do? What do you do for fun? And sometimes it's just vegging out, is absolutely doing nothing, maybe turn the TV on, but you're not even watching it. Sometimes that's what you need to do. And don't beat yourself up for that. Just say,
Right.
wow, I really needed a break. But we have to nurture that part of us that enjoys fun, that enjoys learning. And we learn the way that we want to learn, that we enjoy learning, not how somebody else does. But that empowerment, we, like I was saying, we want to empower everybody we come in contact with, not just us, not just our patients,
So
but the
what,
front office.
yeah, so what is that burnout? Why is it happening?
I think it's because of the conflict that we have.
Okay.
There are too many moving parts, and we have no control in, and I said that we have a lot more than we do, but we really, when it comes down to it, get active in your community, in your hygiene community. I know this is redundant here. I'm fortunate to be living in Virginia, where we have a very outspoken, very well-educated president-elect for our Virginia Hygiene Association, and he is spearheading a lot. And he said something very interesting
Hmm.
as well, which
Do
I
share.
really
Yeah.
did appreciate. Um, he said, this profession was made for women. In fact, it was illegal to be a male and a hygienist until relatively recently in hygiene history. And he said, if this had been a male environment, we would have autonomy. So we as women, I have to say, I am the years of the power suit and coming in and taking over the boardroom and all that, those that's not women's rights movement forward. Embrace who you are
Mhm.
and how you speak and how you be true to yourself. Follow your ethics, follow your values. And that gives you that self-empowerment because you know who you are. And when you know who you are, you can speak clearly, you can speak confidently. And if somebody disagrees, that's their opinion. It's
Right.
not personal.
So the identity, we're talking about the identity of a profession that really doesn't have an identity. It's under the
Mm,
umbrella of another identity.
that's a good point.
And many times people would say, "Oh, you're the dental assistant." And I said, no, I am a dental hygienist. Well, what's the difference? So the
Mhm.
consumer doesn't know the difference. And here we have all this money and education spent, time, hours, money. And where would you, 47 years, I see the burnout, and from what I understand it to be, is there's no identity of future possibilities. You talk about, embrace, but I don't see, a dental hygienist that we've been in it for so many decades. We almost have a responsibility to mentor the younger professionals and help them with, and also politically, like he said, your representative there in the association, give the identity, understanding that you're not stuck. You're not in a world of no options. You have so many options, and build upon the platforms, gain your knowledge and experience, and keep building and keep going forward, because you're only going to energize healthcare and well care in an environment where nobody else is gone. We're the only ones in the whole world that understands this part of the body as well as we do. Why waste it and sell real estate, or why waste it and sell toothpaste for Colgate? I see it's so valuable, and what we're trying to do is help them, empower them with that self um, realization or self-care. Use it. Use it,
Yeah.
but how do we help them, and maybe talk a little bit in the last few minutes that we have is, you said you just jumped in, but I did too. I had no understanding of where I was going to go, and how, and my story was very abrupt. I received radiation poisoning. I had thyroid cancer diagnosed from taking dental x-rays. All
Mm.
of a sudden, I had to make a decision. Do I stay in a clinical environment, or do I get out? I love my patients. I loved having them come in every day. I loved going to work. I loved seeing it. And I was fortunate that we had no power play with the front and the back office, where
Mhm.
I had a very congenial, I should say. So I had no stress there. And I was expected to be there because they expected to see me. And I
Yeah.
had such a friendship with my patients. It was family oriented more than it was work.
Yeah.
And what I noticed was, where do I go? I started working on my creativity in, like you talked about, as a clinical hygienist, adding on non-clinical career options. But I didn't have any direction. I didn't have any mentor. I didn't have anybody that had paved that pathway other than they just got out of clinical hygiene and were selling real estate, and I didn't have any kind of role model. And I think that's where I would really emphasize to talk about what would you recommend, and we collaborate, and Shirley's on board with this role model for our younger peers in the profession. Don't lose hope.
No.
And here's why. And maybe you could talk a little bit about that, because give them some hope, and they've just spent all these years and money, and now they're seeing that this is it. They're let down, they're discouraged, they're frustrated, their bodies feel tired. And trust me, they have a lot more stress than I did when I first started. There's more
Oh,
expectations, more clothing, more magnification, more regulations. I mean, I remember having a lot more freedom when I first started than they have, and
absolutely.
and rules. And so, what can we in this, if they're when they're listening to us, what can we help them to stay in it? We need you. We don't want you to quit. We want you to help build and reshape the identity and our profession so that we are valued. What kind of words of wisdom would you share with this?
I love the passion that you come to every conversation with, Victoria. And you're right. We don't want people leaving. And that's why I went down the path I did, so I could stay in the profession.
Yeah.
It breaks my heart when I see these people, like we were saying, who have to get out, like yourself. I mean, that was like
Oh,
you
that was,
were just like shocked. Talk about a shock to your system, right?
oh, complete shock.
Right. And as I mentioned, I've only worked in offices that were supportive, and I do believe it's because of the intention and the way I frame my life that I had those opportunities coming to me. This is a crazy thing, and it's kind of like a brag, but not meaning to be like, I have never gone in for a job interview and not gotten hired. And I think as hygienists, we have that capability. We are in hot demand. And so you can go in and say, hey, I have a plan for your hygiene department, and this is my intention for you. Let me do what I want to, how I see this going. In the practice where I just left, we each had 75 minutes per patient. In that time, we did all the screenings. And like you said, they are learning so much more now. What I learned in my 15 CEs over decades, that's what they're coming out with, for goodness sakes. I mean, it's crazy. But that's another story. So we do want to support you. We do. You can do this, and it's helpful to have good sounding boards. I'm a happy sounding board. Victoria's a safe place,
Yeah.
and know that you're not alone. You really
Yeah.
aren't. But go in with the mindset of work out a business plan. Chat GPT, ask it prompts, or take a little business class. Everything's online now. You can do it just to get an idea of a business model. Or I'm happy to share business ideas with you. I know Victoria's got a wealth of information there. When you walk in and say, this is what is the typical charge for X, Y, and Z. If I'm given this much time with this much, I can actually produce you this much in the long run. Talk to them where they need to hear how much you can bring to their table, and the fact that you're going to be a team player and that you are on their side. This is not supposed to be adversarial. Our intention, our goal is for our patients to keep coming back because they're
Amen.
getting good service.
Yes.
They're being heard, they're being listened to, they're being empowered, and they have control over their own health. We give them that hope that they can get better. Whether we can at that point, there's always new things coming out that help us help them. So I think
Wonderful.
that is that kind of
Mhm.
what you were asking for?
Absolutely. And it sounds like you phased into that. You went part-time clinical and part-time, what I call non-clinical, but you're still a dental hygienist. And
Always.
to this day, Sally, I can say to anyone I meet on the street, I was a clinical dental hygienist, and they smile. I get their respect almost immediately. And
Yeah.
I say to myself, this is an identity I never want to lose. And I
Yeah.
know Lassette, she's our president-elect for the American Dental Hygiene Association. We had a podcast with her a few weeks ago. We discussed our labels and our identity. And are we going to shift and add to our uh, credentials? And how, what does that look like? And I have been teaching classes in, as you know, as in dental medical thermography certifications, using extra equipment and additional, not extra, but additional equipment to use our knowledge as a base to gather information that's not yet gathered in dental environments. And
Mhm.
I saw the need to go into the medical aspect of what we know. We are trained in medical anatomy, so why aren't we using it? Why not put that in our title? We've kind of gone back and forth with, I have with a few of the dental hygiene sisters I have in talking about these labels, and also with Linsette about, is it dental medical hygiene? Because we are
Mhm.
in a medical environment of the body that's very close to the brain, close to the senses and organs and glands and nerves, right by the brain stem. How come this is not a medical environment? We are actually medically treating an environment that could be toxic overload to the heart or to the brain or to any part of the stomach or the gut. The gut's, as you know, related to that part of the body intakes nourishment. It uses its muscle to speak words. If any of those functions aren't working, or we start to see a deterioration like a pre-stroke, the way that the tongue is used to swallow, we watch their swallowing, we see their airway opening, oxygen into the body. There's so many medical implications. And you're talking about the emotional. I saw the emotional in gum tissue when people were highly stressed with their jobs.
Right.
We would call it, you bled like a stuck pig. I remember soaking 2 by 2 gauzes on a tray, about 30 of them soaked with blood. Now that isn't dental, that's medical. And I have an opportunity now to work with a collaborative, maybe a DO or a nutritionist or someone like yourself to help them learn how to manage the emotional repercussions of their environment that's breaking their body down.
Yeah.
So what, you did talk about it, about the coping and the possibilities and taking those business classes and courses, and they're out there, they're online. But I almost think, Sally, we need to be available for our hygiene sisters to contact us.
Absolutely.
We've been down that road, right?
Right. And if it's nothing but a helpful ear, a
Yeah.
sympathetic, we understand.
Oh, completely.
Yes, but honestly, I mean, I'll give my email address. It's sally@yourblissfuljourney.com. Email me, vent. That's sometimes all you need.
Yes.
But one thing, we want to open that line of communication, like you were saying. So, with our patients, one of the simplest ways that I have been telling my patients, I've been telling my patients before I did get out of clinic, is that about the dynamics of what was happening to our profession, and they're like, oh, "You're kidding me!"
They're
And
not
I
happy
said,
about it.
she said, what do I tell my friends who go to a different dentist? And I said, ask their hygienist to show them their license. I said, we have to have our license displayed. And that's also going to open their mind to chatting with you about what's happening or why they do what they do. But it allows them to say, oh, you're not an assistant, right? Oh, you have a different training then. Yes, it lets us brag on ourselves
Thank
and
you.
say how fabulous we are
Yeah.
and what we know.
Yeah. That's wonderful. And where can our hygiene sisters just learning and training in this environment and the ones that are struggling with burnout, where can they contact you? Or how can they? You mentioned your email, but let's give a little bit more information.
So please, yeah, if this resonates with you at all, please go to my website, yourblissfuljourney.com. I've got a free stress test that you can sign in at the top and a couple other free resources in there. Listen, read my blogs, and again, contact me and share this video, share this podcast. Victoria has a wealth of information. You heard some of, I mean, who she's been talking to. A lot of great stuff out there. We have a lot of information to share. You guys have a lot of information to share. And together, we can actually improve the health of people instead of just, another cleaning,
But
another
we're
bloody
talking
protein.
expansion of what of a foundation that we can go now into non-clinical. So it is possible to
It is
stay a
possible.
dental hygienist and be practicing in a non-clinical environment, correct?
Yes,
Yes,
it is correct. And it is possible to
possible.
be happy and pain-free and still work in a clinical environment.
Amen, sister.
So,
And I want the hope to be out there for all of our hygiene sisters to know
yes,
that we're doing it. We actually are living it at this moment as we speak. And
yes,
my career path led me into my collaboration and communication skills, networking with drlinks.com, and helping the professionals know that having a dental hygienist in a wellness clinic taking infrared images about the head and neck and tying it into the rest of the body, it was related to the world of whole person care. Not just, I got a back pain. That back pain could be there because of a dental problem. And tying it together is where we're needed. I can't tell you how many times I've heard medical doctors tell me, I know nothing about the mouth.
right. The emergency room people, like the patient goes in with a swollen face and they go, I don't know. Which tooth was that? Oh, it's the one way in the back.
Way in the back.
You know,
Yes, I
that's
do
what the
know.
doctors are, that's their, check that one out way down there in the back on the left. You're
Yes,
like,
yes.
oh,
Well, I'll tell you, we have a world, like you said, that's just about to open up wide for us. We're here, we're leaders, we're mentoring, and we support you 100%, if not more. We want you to stay in the profession. We don't want the dental hygiene profession to disappear and go into what we call preceptorship, a dentist training a dental assistant to clean teeth, basically sweep the floor. There's much more to it, and will be available for you. And in closing, thank you so much, Sally. It's been wonderful working with you on this message, getting our message out to the world, and especially in the United States, where we see the breakdown of our profession starting to happen because of this lack of knowledge that you're talking about that we don't have yet shared, but we're working on it.
that's right. Yes, we can take this as a, oh, let's not go there, or wow, what a great opportunity. This is getting mixed
Absolutely.
up. Well, how can
Yes.
I get it going the way I want it to go?
Absolutely. And how
Yeah.
exciting is that? It's just now beginning. And thank you so much again for joining us on our podcast. And we'll see Shirley next time. Take care. Bye bye.
Thank you all. Bye now.